Hi there, Ankit here from E4E Hub. Today I'm here to solve a problem. A problem that has been confusing not only learners of English but also people who use English fairly fluently in their day-to-day lives. The real culprits making life difficult for learners are these two words: that and which. Learners of English can still get away in most situations, but what about candidates taking the international exams like the IELTS? If you are taking these exams, you will be penalized if you use one or the other. So the big question remains, when do we use which and when do we use that? What's the difference between the two? That's the problem we are going to solve in this lesson. So, remain glued to your seats until the end of this video and you shall prepare yourself to never make mistakes that involve which and that. Are you ready? I didn't hear you. Are you ready? That's better. Coming up in a bit. Okay, so think about this. Why do we use these words which and that? What do they help us do? In absolute layman terms, these words help us to connect nouns or pronouns to clauses that give us extra information about those nouns or pronouns. Think of it as a glue sticking together nouns and extra information about those nouns. In grammatical terms, we call them relative pronouns. Okay, let's check out what the rule of thumb is. We always use the relative pronoun that when we want to refer to people. If we want to refer to things or objects, we can use either that or which. Let's look at the usage of both that and which in context, so you will have a deeper idea about this piece of grammar. The first sentence: the smartphone that I thought I lost is in the drawer. Second sentence: Titanic, which was directed by James Cameron, is my favorite movie. Can you pick the subject of each of these sentences, the noun? Okay, let's look. In the first, the noun is the smartphone. And in the second, the noun is the movie Titanic. Can we go one step further and look for the relative pronouns that and which and where they occur? Here you go. So in the first sentence, the relative pronoun that directly comes after the subject, the smartphone. While in the second sentence, we have which following the noun Titanic, but there is a comma between Titanic and which is really important. Now look for the relative clauses, the clauses which contain these pronouns. So the first sentence, the relative clause is that I thought I lost. While in the second sentence, the relative clause is which was directed by James Cameron. Yeah. And the final step, I want you to try each sentence but by cutting the relative clause out of the sentence. Just check whether the sentence still retains the meaning or not. So if we do that in the first example, the resulting sentence becomes, the smartphone is in the drawer. Do I know which smartphone am I referring to? Will the person who is reading this or listening to this know which smartphone am I talking about? The answer is no. So, the sentence is partially losing its meaning. It does not retain its complete meaning. What can we conclude about that? We always use clauses which contain that when we want to add key information about the noun or the subject of that sentence. If we leave out that clause, it means that the meaning may not be retained, it may change. In fact, it will change always. Let's do the same exercise with our second example. What if I cut out the relative clause out? Does the sentence retain its core meaning? The resulting sentence becomes, Titanic is my favorite movie. So, can the person who's reading this or listening to this resultant sentence make out what movie is my favorite? Absolutely yes. So, the core meaning is still retained despite cutting out the relative clause. That's why we use which for. So, all clauses which contain the relative pronoun which hold the secondary information which is unessential to the noun or the subject of that sentence. Even if we leave out that clause, it doesn't mean that we are changing the meaning of that sentence. It retains the meaning of the sentence 100%. Okay? So to quickly summarize, the relative pronoun that is used to provide key information about the noun or the pronoun of that sentence. Leaving the clause which contains that changes the meaning entirely. On the other hand, we have the relative pronoun which is used to provide secondary information about the noun or the pronoun. Even if we leave the clause which contains which, that's not going to change the meaning of that sentence. I hope everything's clear, and if you're ready with this concept, please try this little quiz out and see how many of those can you answer correctly. Okay, here goes the quiz. You will see sentences one after the other. You have to fill in the blanks using one of the two relative pronouns, which or that. Okay, ready? Here comes the first one. The smartphone you dropped in water can't be repaired. I repeat, the smartphone you dropped in water can't be repaired. Will it be that or which? And the answer is that. Because if we leave the relative clause, I don't know which smartphone am I talking about. Hence, we use that and not which. Here comes your second question. Global warming is one of the many problems facing the entire human race, should not be ignored. I repeat, global warming is one of the many problems facing the entire human race, should not be ignored. What do you think it will be? Which or that? Try cutting the relative clause out and see if it still retains the meaning or not. And I am 100% sure here the answer is which. Because even if I leave out the middle clause, I get the sentence global warming should not be ignored. Everything in the which clause is adding secondary information which is not essential to the meaning of that sentence. I still know what issue am I talking about, and that's global warming. Great, let's move on with the third question. Vehicle owners do not pass inspection shall be penalized and their vehicles confiscated. I repeat, vehicle owners do not pass inspection shall be penalized and their vehicles confiscated. That or which? Here the answer is that. Because if we leave the relative clause out, I don't know which owners am I talking about. Okay? I'm only talking about those owners that do not go through the inspection procedure. Not all the vehicle owners. Yeah? So here we have that and not which. The last one. Further research on nuclear weapons seems to have invited mixed opinions, should be banned completely. Further research on nuclear weapons seems to have invited mixed opinions, should be banned completely. And the answer here is which, because the relative clause is just giving you secondary information that is not at the core of the meaning of the sentence. Okay, I do hope that now you've gained awareness of how to deal with culprits, that and which, so that you never get confused again. Do post your queries and things that confuse you in English grammar using the comments box below. And yes, please consider subscribing to this channel and clicking on the notifications bell icon just besides that, so that you stay updated about our future lessons. If you want to get in touch on Twitter, that's where you can go. Please follow us here. We are also on Facebook in case that's what you're into. That's it from me now for this lesson. See you soon in the next lesson. Bye-bye. Happy learning. Take care.